Prelude, the lightning of power and desire. At the summit of Mount Olympus, where clouds bow and thunder kneels, one name reigns above all others, Zeus. To mortals, he is the architect of order, the guardian of cosmic law, the hand that strikes down chaos with divine lightning. Yet behind every brilliant flash of thunder lies a darker echo, a whisper of longing, temptation, and unrestrained desire. Zeus is not merely a god of the sky. He is a god of wanting. His power stretches across heaven and earth, but his heart is restless, always searching for the next forbidden flame. Each storm he unleashes seems to mirror an inner turmoil, as if the sky itself trembles under the weight of his passions. Legends speak of Zeus descending from Olympus in countless forms: a golden rain, a gentle swan, a wandering stranger, all disguises worn in pursuit of love that was never meant to be his. In those moments, divine authority becomes seduction, and supreme power transforms into temptation. Thus, Zeus stands as both ruler and prisoner, the master of all creation, yet enslaved by his own desires. His lightning does not only illuminate the sky, it reveals the eternal conflict between power and passion burning within the king of the gods. Part 1. Zeus, the supreme god and the hunger for power. The birth of a tyrant slayer. Before Zeus was the ruler of Olympus, before thunder answered to his will, he was a hunted child. Cronus, king of the Titans, had learned of a prophecy. One of his own children would overthrow him. In fear, he devoured each newborn as soon as it left Rhea's womb. Gods who would have ruled the cosmos were swallowed into darkness, trapped in their father's living prison. Zeus alone escaped. Rhea hid the infant in a cave on Crete, and tricked Cronus into swallowing a stone instead. There, nurtured by nymphs and guarded by the Curetes who clashed their shields to drown out his cries, Zeus grew not just in strength, but in resentment. He learned early that power is the only shield against annihilation. This childhood shaped him forever. Zeus did not grow up learning love. He grew up learning survival. And survival, for a god destined to rule, meant one thing: dominance, overthrowing the old world. When Zeus reached maturity, he did not return to his father seeking peace. He returned with poison and vengeance. With the help of Metis, Zeus forced Cronus to vomit up his swallowed children: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, resurrecting a generation of gods who had never known freedom. Together, they waged a war that tore the universe apart, the Titanomachy. For 10 years, Titans and Olympians clashed. Mountains were hurled like weapons. Oceans boiled. The sky cracked open. And Zeus stood at the center of it all. It was Zeus who freed the Cyclopes and the Cinemanes, monstrous beings imprisoned by Cronus. In gratitude, the Cyclopes forged Zeus his greatest weapon, the Thunderbolt, a divine force capable of splitting worlds. With it, Zeus did not merely defeat the Titans. He erased them. Cronus was cast into Tartarus, locked away in eternal darkness. The old order was destroyed, and Zeus emerged not just as a victor, but as the sole undisputed authority of the cosmos. Yet even in triumph, something dangerous was born. A god who learns that violence brings order may never stop using violence to maintain it. The crown of Olympus. After the war, Zeus divided the universe with his brothers. Poseidon received the seas. Hades took the underworld. Zeus claimed the sky, and with it dominion over all. From Mount Olympus, Zeus ruled not merely as a king, but as a living embodiment of law. Oaths were sworn in his name. Justice flowed from his judgment. Even the other gods trembled at his thunder. But power gained through conquest is never fully secure. Zeus understood this. His reign was haunted by the same fear that had consumed Cronus, the fear of being overthrown. He had destroyed a tyrant, yet he knew in his bones how easily a ruler could become one. So Zeus did what insecure rulers always do. He sought total control, not only over the heavens, but over fate, loyalty, and even desire, power and possession. To Zeus, Love was never separate from power. Every goddess he seduced, every mortal woman he touched, was not merely an object of affection. She was a symbol of conquest. Each affair expanded his influence, creating bloodlines tied directly to him, spreading his essence across the world. In a sense, Zeus was building an empire of flesh and blood. Heroes like Heracles, Perseus, and Minos were not accidents. They were living monuments to Zeus's reach, proof that no kingdom, no lineage, no womb was beyond his grasp. This was not romance. This was imperialism, the psychology of a god who must own everything. Why did Zeus need so many lovers? The myths offer a chilling answer. Because he could. A being who controls lightning, fate, and law exists beyond refusal. When Zeus desired, the world bent. Yet beneath this arrogance lay a deeper terror. Zeus was afraid of losing control. He remembered the darkness of Cronus's belly. He remembered helplessness. So he compensated with excess. If everything belonged to him, land, sky, gods, women, then he would never again be powerless. Thus, his lust was not weakness. It was strategy, the illusion of divine right. Olympus worshipped Zeus as a protector. But protection and domination are easily confused. Zeus punished those who defied him. Zeus rewarded those who pleased him. Zeus decided what was just, and justice always favored Zeus. Over time, law became indistinguishable from his will. And that is the most dangerous form of power. When authority believes, it is morality. The storm within. The sky above Olympus is never truly calm. Clouds gather. Thunder rolls. Lightning flashes. In ancient stories, and in the darker legends whispered by nymphs and forgotten goddesses, the storms were said to mirror Zeus's inner state. Each affair, each betrayal of Hera, each stolen moment of pleasure stirred the heavens. Zeus was not at peace. He ruled everything, yet mastered nothing inside himself. The seed of corruption. Thus, the tragedy of Zeus begins not with lust, but with fear. Fear of being overthrown. Fear of being unloved. Fear of being powerless. And so he chose to be everything else. Supreme. Feared. Desired. Even if it meant turning the world into his personal domain. Conclusion of Part 1. Zeus did not become the ruler of gods because he was the most just. He became ruler because he was the most relentless. And once he had everything, he could not stop wanting more. For a god who once knew helplessness, power was never enough. It had to be absolute. Part 2. The hidden affairs and the wounds they left behind. Whispers beneath Olympus. Olympus was built of marble and gold, but its foundations were laid upon secrets. For every hymn sung to Zeus, there was a woman somewhere crying his name in silence. For every statue raised in his honor, there was a life quietly shattered by his touch. The gods called him father. The poets called him king. But many women, mortal and divine, knew him by another name, the storm that passed through their lives and never stayed. His affairs were never meant to be seen. They existed in shadows, hidden behind clouds, behind divine disguises, behind fear. And yet, their consequences were impossible to hide. The art of divine deception. Zeus did not seduce as mortals do. He conquered through illusion. When he desired someone, he rarely appeared as himself. Instead, he became what she trusted. To Leda, he was a wounded swan. To Danae, he was golden rain. To Europa, a gentle white bull. To Alcmene, the very image of her husband. These were not romantic gestures. They were acts of manipulation. By wearing forms that disarmed, Zeus removed the possibility of refusal. How could a woman reject a helpless creature, a sacred sign, a loving spouse? This was seduction without consent, divine power dressed as affection. Io, the girl who became a prisoner. Io was a priestess of Hera, sworn to purity. Zeus saw her, and desire struck him like lightning. To hide his affair, Zeus wrapped the world in clouds and took her. When Hera grew suspicious, Zeus transformed Io into a white heifer. He did not free her. He hid her. Io wandered the earth in animal form, hunted by Hera's jealousy, tormented by a gadfly sent to drive her mad. She crossed oceans, deserts, and mountains, unable to speak, unable to beg for mercy. Zeus watched, the king of gods, who could command heaven itself. Let the girl he claimed to love suffer for years. Love, when mixed with cowardice, becomes cruelty. Semele, the woman who died for wanting the truth. Semele was a mortal princess who loved Zeus without knowing his true nature. Hera, cruel and clever, whispered doubt into her heart. If he truly loves you, ask him to show himself. Bound by a divine oath, Zeus could not refuse. When he appeared in his full, godly form, blazing, radiant, terrible, Semele was consumed by fire. She died not because Zeus hated her. She died because Zeus loved himself more. Leda and the swan. Leda never knew she was being hunted by a god. She thought she was saving a frightened creature. Zeus chose the shape of a swan because it symbolized innocence. He wrapped his divinity in feathers and fragility. From that night came Helen, whose beauty would one day ignite the Trojan War. A single act of Zeus's desire would cost thousands of lives. The forgotten mothers. For every famous child of Zeus, there was a forgotten mother. Women who raised divine sons alone. Women who were blamed, exiled, or destroyed. Women whose only crime was being seen. The myths remember Heracles. They forget Alcmene's tears. Hera, queen of betrayal. Hera is often painted as cruel, but she was also a woman repeatedly humiliated by a husband who could not be faithful. Zeus did not just betray Hera, he made a spectacle of it. And so Hera struck back, not at Zeus, but at his lovers and their children. A tragic cycle of victim punishing victim, while the true offender remained untouchable. The empire of illegitimate gods. Zeus's children were everywhere. Kings, heroes, monsters, warriors. Each one was a reminder that Zeus had been there. Olympus became less a family and more a web of unresolved trauma. Conclusion of Part 2. Zeus did not simply love too much. He left too much behind. Broken women, fatherless children, a sky heavy with unspoken grief. And Olympus, for all its splendor, was built upon the tears of those who were never allowed to say no. Part 3. Womanizer or abuser of divine power. The question Olympus never dared to ask. In every myth about Zeus, there is one silence louder than all the thunder. No one ever asked whether the women had a choice. Poets spoke of seduction. Priests spoke of divine romance. Statues showed willing embraces. But in the shadows of Olympus, another truth lingered. How does one refuse a god? When a being controls storms, fate, and punishment itself, consent becomes a fragile illusion. Zeus did not need to threaten. His power was threat enough. The power imbalance of the divine. A mortal woman lived in a world where gods decided harvests, plagues, births, and deaths. If Zeus desired her, what were her options? Say yes, and be marked forever. Say no, and risk divine wrath. Even if Zeus never spoke a threat, the imbalance was absolute. That is not courtship. That is coercion wearing the mask of love. The language of myths. Ancient myths often describe Zeus's affairs using gentle words. He lay with her, he wooed her, he took her. But in the original Greek, many of these phrases also mean he seized. The language itself betrays the truth. These were not equal encounters. They were acts of domination. When desire becomes law, Zeus was not only the king of gods, he was the embodiment of justice. This meant that when Zeus wanted something, it was by definition justified. There was no higher court, no appeal, no divine restraining order. His desire became law, and that is the darkest form of tyranny. When lust disguises itself as righteousness. The victims without voices. Io, Olympus, Semele, Leda, Alcmene. The myths tell us what happened to them. They do not tell us how they felt. Their fear, their confusion, their grief. Those emotions were erased by centuries of storytelling that glorified Zeus and silenced everyone else. History was written by the thunderbolt. Hera's tragedy revisited. Hera is remembered as jealous. But imagine being eternally bound to a man who cannot stop betraying you, a man you cannot leave, cannot punish, cannot escape. Hera's cruelty was not born from malice. It was born from powerlessness. Zeus and the pattern of predators. Zeus's behavior followed a pattern. He noticed a woman. He desired her. He altered reality to reach her. He moved on. That is not romance. That is predation. Why Zeus was never stopped. No one could challenge him. Not the gods. Not the titans. Not fate itself. Power protected him. It always does. The modern mirror. We still tell stories about Zeus. We still romanticize powerful men who take what they want. The myths have not changed. Only the names have. Conclusion of Part 3. So is Zeus a womanizer? Or something far darker? When desire is backed by omnipotence, it ceases to be desire. It becomes a weapon. And Zeus, the king of gods, wielded it with devastating force. Conclusion. The supreme god, or the symbol of endless desire. Zeus will forever stand as the ruler of Olympus, the god whose lightning shaped the heavens and whose will define the order of the cosmos. To the world, he is remembered as the champion who defeated the Titans and brought stability to a broken universe. Yet behind that towering image lies a far more unsettling truth. For Zeus did not only rule the skies, he ruled over hearts, bodies, and destinies. His countless lovers and secret affairs were not merely stories of passion, but reflections of a god who could never be satisfied. With unlimited power came unlimited entitlement, and with it, a hunger that no conquest could ever quiet. Every new romance was less about love and more about control, a reminder that even the king of gods could not escape his own cravings. In the end, Zeus remains a paradox, the ultimate guardian of order and the ultimate embodiment of chaos within. He created law, yet lived above it. He punished excess, yet indulged in it endlessly. Perhaps that is the true tragedy of Zeus, a god who ruled everything in existence, yet never learned how to rule himself. When even thunder learns to lie. In Greek mythology, Zeus stands as the supreme ruler of gods and men, the embodiment of thunder, law, and cosmic authority. His lightning was meant to represent truth, swift, absolute, and impossible to deny. Yet behind the blinding flashes of the sky lies a far more unsettling reality. Even thunder can lie. Beyond the throne of Olympus, Zeus was not only a god of order, but a master of deception. His power did not stop at ruling the heavens. It extended into the hearts, bodies, and destinies of countless goddesses and mortal women. Disguised as beasts, storms, shadows, and even beauty itself, Zeus crossed boundaries that no one dared to challenge, because no one could. These were not simple love affairs. They were carefully concealed encounters, wrapped in illusion and imbalance. Many never knew the truth until it was too late, until desire turned into abandonment and passion into punishment. For when Zeus departed, he left behind more than broken vows. He left lives shattered beneath the weight of divine consequences. Whispered myths suggest that Olympus itself knew this truth, yet chose silence. The thunder that shook the earth did not always announce justice. Sometimes it concealed betrayal. And so a disturbing question emerges from the storm clouds. When the most powerful god bends truth to satisfy desire, can love exist without deception? In the world of Zeus, even the sky does not tell the whole story. Part 1. Zeus, the god of absolute power and unlimited desire. Power, when left unchecked, rarely confines itself to duty alone. In the case of Zeus, supreme ruler of Olympus, power did not merely govern the skies. It reached into desire, intimacy, and control over others. To understand Zeus's countless affairs is not simply to catalog his lovers, but to confront a deeper truth. His sexual dominance was an extension of his divine authority. Zeus did not separate rule from indulgence. For him, sovereignty over the cosmos implied sovereignty over bodies, choices, and destinies. Desire was not a weakness to be restrained, but a privilege to be exercised. The illusion of the ideal king. On Olympus, Zeus appeared as the perfect ruler. He upheld law, punished chaos, and maintained balance among gods and mortals alike. His thunderbolts symbolized justice. His throne embodied stability. To the ancient world, this image was reassuring, a single, all-powerful figure guarding order against collapse. Yet beneath this ideal lay contradiction. A ruler who demands loyalty but offers none. A god who condemns excess while indulging endlessly. A protector of marriage who repeatedly violates it. Zeus's authority insulated him from consequence. His position did not merely excuse his behavior, it legitimized it. Marriage as symbol, not commitment. Zeus's union with Hera, goddess of marriage, was meant to represent cosmic harmony. In reality, it exposed the emptiness of vows when power overrides accountability. Hera embodied fidelity. Zeus embodied entitlement. Their marriage was not built on equality, but on dominance. Zeus did not fear betrayal. He was the betrayer. Hera's jealousy and vengeance became infamous, yet Zeus remained untouched, a reflection of how systems of power redirect blame onto victims rather than perpetrators. In a whispered, fictionalized myth, Hera once asked Zeus why he continued his affairs. Zeus replied, "Because I can." The answer needed no justification. Desire without consent. What modern eyes recognize as abuse. Ancient myth often disguised as seduction. Zeus rarely approached women openly as himself. Instead, he relied on deception, disguise, and imbalance. He became a white bull to lure Europa, a swan to approach Leda, a golden rain to reach Danae, a shepherd, a flame, a shadow, whatever form erased resistance. Desire without consent. What modern eyes recognize as abuse. Ancient myth often disguised as seduction. Zeus rarely approached women openly as himself. Instead, he relied on deception, disguise, and imbalance. He became a white bull to lure Europa, a swan to approach Leda, a golden rain to reach Danae, a shepherd, a flame, a shadow, whatever form erased resistance. These were not mutual romances. They were encounters shaped by power asymmetry, fear, and confusion. Mortal women could not refuse a god, especially one who controlled storms, fate, and punishment. To resist Zeus was not to reject a lover. It was to risk annihilation. The language of transformation. Zeus's transformations were not whimsical. They were strategic. By abandoning his true form, Zeus removed the possibility of informed choice. Desire became manipulated. Consent became impossible. The god remained hidden while the woman bore the consequences. This pattern reveals something chilling. Zeus did not want love. He wanted access. And access, to a god, required no permission. A catalog of conquests. The sheer number of Zeus's affairs is staggering. Gods: Hera, Demeter, Leto, Maia, Dion. Mortals: Europa, Io, Semele, Danae, Alcmene, Callisto, and many more. Each union produced children, heroes, kings, monsters, whose lives were shaped by divine neglect and maternal suffering. Zeus rarely remained. He intervened only when his legacy was threatened, not when his lovers suffered. In a fabricated legend, Hermes once asked Zeus whether he felt attachment to those he pursued. Zeus laughed and answered, "Attachment is for those who can lose." Women as battlefields of power. Zeus's lovers became collateral damage in divine politics. Hera's wrath fell upon them, not Zeus. Io was transformed into a cow and tormented. Semele was burned alive. Callisto was exiled and turned into a bear. These women paid the price for Zeus's desire, while Zeus remained exalted. This displacement of punishment reveals a systemic truth. Power protects itself by redirecting blame downward. Zeus did not shield his lovers. He used them. Children of desire, heirs of conflict. The offspring of Zeus's affairs were rarely allowed peace. Heracles endured madness and endless trials. Dionysus was hunted from birth. Perseus grew up in exile. Helen became a catalyst for war. These children embodied Zeus's contradictions, extraordinary power born from exploitation. They were celebrated and cursed simultaneously, forever tied to the consequences of their father's indulgence. In one fictional account, Zeus views his children as proof of vitality, not responsibility. Each birth affirmed his dominance. Each tragedy was incidental. Desire as political strategy. Zeus's affairs were not purely impulsive. They often served political ends. By fathering children across regions, Zeus embedded his influence into mortal bloodlines. Kings claimed divine descent. Cities legitimized rule through Zeus's favor. Desire became governance. This strategy mirrors empire building: spread presence, assert dominance, ensure loyalty. Love was not the goal. Control was. The god who could not be refused. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Zeus's sexuality is not the number of his affairs, but the impossibility of refusal. A mortal woman could not say no. A goddess could not challenge him. A wife could not leave. This is the ultimate expression of unchecked power, desire that encounters no boundary. Zeus did not seduce the world. He consumed it. The moral blindness of Olympus. Olympus knew. The gods whispered, watched, and remained silent. Some disapproved. None intervened. To oppose Zeus was to invite destruction. Thus, Zeus's behavior was not merely personal failure. It was institutional. A system that protects the powerful enables exploitation. Thunder covered truth. Myth softened violence. Tradition normalized abuse. Unlimited desire as a symptom of absolute power. Zeus's endless affairs were not proof of passion. They were symptoms. Symptoms of entitlement. Symptoms of invulnerability. Symptoms of a ruler who mistook authority for permission. His desire had no natural limit because nothing restrained it. In a world where consequences did not apply to him, restraint had no meaning. A god reflected in human history. Zeus's story is uncomfortable because it is familiar. Throughout history, powerful men have mirrored him. Rulers who used authority to justify indulgence, who confused desire with destiny, who left devastation behind while remaining celebrated. Zeus is not merely a mythological figure. He is an archetype. The question beneath the myth: was Zeus a god of love, or a god who weaponized desire? When power defines morality, desire becomes law. And when desire becomes law, those without power become expendable. This is the uncomfortable truth at the heart of Zeus's legend. His unlimited desire was not a flaw. It was the inevitable outcome of absolute power. Part 2. Hidden affairs, deception, transformation, and the pain left behind. If Zeus's unlimited desire was the symptom of absolute power, then deception was its most effective instrument. Rarely did Zeus pursue love openly. Rarely did he approach as himself. Instead, his affairs unfolded behind masks, illusions, and transformations, carefully designed to eliminate resistance, erase choice, and conceal responsibility. These were not romances written in the language of mutual longing. They were encounters orchestrated by a god who understood that truth invites refusal, while deception ensures access. Behind every legendary affair lies a pattern: a woman deceived, a god disguised, and a future irrevocably altered. The strategy of concealment. Zeus did not hide his affairs out of shame. He hid them because secrecy was useful. Secrecy protected his public image as ruler. Secrecy avoided direct confrontation with Hera. Secrecy ensured that consequences fell elsewhere. In myth, concealment is often framed as cleverness. In reality, it was a calculated strategy of power. By concealing his identity, Zeus removed the possibility of informed consent. The women involved did not choose Zeus. They chose illusions. An illusion, once broken, offers no escape. Transformation as a tool of control. Zeus's transformations were not acts of whimsy or romance. They were methods of domination. He became a white bull for Europa, not merely to charm her, but to appear harmless. He became a swan for Leda, a symbol of beauty masking intrusion. He became a shower of golden rain for Danae, bypassing physical barriers entirely. He became mist, flame, shepherd, or shadow, whatever form dissolved resistance. Each transformation served the same purpose: to control the terms of encounter. The women were denied the chance to recognize danger. By the time truth revealed itself, it was too late. The god had already claimed what he wanted and vanished. Europa, the innocence of trust. Europa did not seek a god. She encountered a bull. Gentle, radiant, and strangely intelligent, the white bull inspired trust. When Europa climbed onto its back, she believed she was safe. Only when the bull plunged into the sea did the truth begin to emerge. By the time Zeus revealed himself, Europa was already lost, carried far from home, family, and agency. In official myth, Europa becomes a queen, mother of kings. But this framing obscures the violence beneath the tale. Europa did not consent to exile, nor to divine possession. Her elevation was compensation, not choice. In a fictional retelling, Europa later asks Zeus why he did not come as himself. Zeus answers simply, "You would not have followed me." Io, silence as survival. Io's story reveals another dimension of deception, erasure of voice. When Hera's suspicion fell upon her, Zeus transformed Io into a cow to hide the affair. This act did not protect Io, it silenced her. She could no longer speak, explain, or defend herself. She wandered the earth tormented, voiceless, hunted by monsters sent by Hera. Zeus watched from above, intervening only enough to preserve life, not dignity. Io's suffering exposes the cruel economy of Zeus's concealment. When secrecy failed, the woman paid the price. Danae, desire without touch. Danae was imprisoned by her father, locked away to prevent prophecy. Zeus did not break the door. He bypassed it. As golden rain, Zeus entered her chamber without consent, without warning, without possibility of resistance. The myth often romanticizes this moment as divine miracle. In truth, it represents the ultimate violation, desire that ignores all boundaries, physical or moral. Danae did not invite Zeus. She could not escape him. She could not even see him. Her pregnancy was discovered not as love fulfilled, but as disaster revealed. Leda, beauty as disguise. The story of Leda and the swan is often painted as sensual and poetic. Yet beneath the imagery lies profound imbalance. The swan's beauty disarmed suspicion. Leda did not recognize threat. She encountered grace. By the time Zeus's identity became clear, the act was complete. This pattern recurs again and again. Beauty used to disarm, gentleness to deceive, transformation to dominate. Love, in Zeus's world, required illusion to exist. Semele, truth that burns. Semele's tragedy marks a turning point. Unlike others, she desired truth. Manipulated by Hera, Semele asked Zeus to reveal himself in his true form. Bound by oath, Zeus complied, and the sight destroyed her. Mortals cannot survive the full presence of a god. This moment is often framed as Semele's folly. But the deeper question remains, why was truth fatal in the first place? Because Zeus's power was never meant to be confronted directly. Truth, in his world, was lethal. Semele did not die because she was foolish. She died because divine power, when stripped of illusion, is unbearable. Callisto, betrayal and erasure. Callisto trusted Artemis, not Zeus. Zeus exploited that trust by taking Artemis's form. This deception is particularly cruel. Zeus did not merely disguise himself. He weaponized sisterhood. When Callisto's pregnancy was revealed, she was cast out, punished, and transformed into a bear. Her body became evidence against her. Her voice was dismissed. Zeus did not defend her. He merely ensured that their son survived. The woman was expendable. The legacy was not. The pattern of abandonment. In nearly every hidden affair, Zeus's involvement followed the same arc. Approach through deception. Claim desire. Disappear. What remained was not love, but aftermath. The women were left to face social ruin, divine punishment, exile, or madness. Zeus rarely stayed. He intervened only when the child's survival mattered, not the mother's suffering. This is not neglect. It is design. Hera's wrath and Zeus's silence. Hera's jealousy is legendary, but her anger was misdirected. She punished the women because Zeus was untouchable. Zeus allowed this because it preserved his authority. The conflict between Hera and the victims served Zeus perfectly. It distracted from his role. In a darker, fictionalized myth, Hera once confronted Zeus, asking why he never protected those he pursued. Zeus replied, "If I did, they would matter." Silence followed. Pain as collateral damage. Zeus's hidden affairs produced pain on a cosmic scale, yet pain was never accounted for. There was no reckoning, no apology, no responsibility. Suffering became background noise, an acceptable cost of divine desire. This normalization of pain is what makes Zeus's actions so disturbing. The problem is not merely infidelity. It is the systematic erasure of consequence. Why the affairs had to be hidden. Zeus did not hide his affairs because they were wrong. He hid them because they exposed truth. Truth that power relies on deception. Truth that authority fears refusal. Truth that desire, when unchecked, destroys lives. If the affairs had been open, they would have invited scrutiny. Scrutiny threatens myth. Myth protects power. Thus, concealment was essential. Myth as softened violence. Ancient myth often romanticized these stories, turning violation into poetry, coercion into destiny, trauma into legend. This was not accidental. By aestheticizing harm, myth made it bearable. By sanctifying Zeus, myth excused him. By glorifying offspring, myth justified suffering. Story became shield. The women who disappeared from history. We remember the sons. We forget the mothers. Heroes are named. Women are footnotes. This selective memory reveals whose pain mattered and whose did not. Zeus's hidden affairs were not only acts of desire, but acts of historical erasure. The cost of deception. Every deception leaves residue. Io wandered endlessly. Europa never returned home. Semele burned. Callisto vanished. Danae lived in exile. Zeus remained untouched. This imbalance is the true legacy of his hidden affairs. The question beneath the lies. If love requires truth, can deception ever produce love? Zeus's affairs suggest not. They produced heirs, wars, legends, but not intimacy, not equality, not choice. What Zeus sought was not connection. It was confirmation of dominance. And dominance, when disguised as love, leaves only pain behind. Closing reflection of Part 2. The hidden affairs of Zeus reveal a god who feared transparency more than guilt. A ruler who relied on illusion to preserve authority. A lover who could not tolerate refusal. In this light, Zeus's transformations were not acts of magic. They were acts of avoidance. Avoidance of accountability. Avoidance of consent. Avoidance of truth. And when truth finally emerged, it burned everything it touched. Part 3. Promiscuity or the abuse of divine power. For centuries, Zeus's countless affairs have been excused with a single word: promiscuity. He is portrayed as a god ruled by passion, overwhelmed by desire, a lover too powerful to restrain himself. In this interpretation, Zeus is flawed but familiar, a divine mirror of human weakness magnified by immortality. Yet this explanation is dangerously insufficient, because promiscuity implies excess of desire, not excess of power. And Zeus's actions were never merely about desire. They were about control. To understand Zeus honestly, one must ask a more unsettling question. When desire is backed by absolute authority, can it still be called love, or does it become domination? The myth of the unfaithful husband. The most common framing of Zeus reduces his behavior to marital infidelity. He is the unfaithful husband, Hera the jealous wife, the lovers unfortunate participants in a divine soap opera. This narrative is convenient and deeply misleading. Infidelity assumes choice on both sides. It presumes that the lovers entered freely, knowing the risks. But in Zeus's case, the imbalance of power was absolute. He was not simply another suitor. He was the sky itself, the law itself, the hand that decided fate. To refuse Zeus was not to reject a man. It was to reject reality. Thus, the language of adultery collapses under scrutiny. What Zeus practiced was not infidelity. It was entitlement enforced by divinity. Power that eliminates consent. Consent requires the ability to say no without consequence. In Zeus's world, no such condition existed. A mortal woman faced with Zeus did not encounter a choice between acceptance and rejection. She faced a choice between compliance and annihilation, physical, social, or spiritual. Even when Zeus used charm rather than threat, the coercion remained implicit. The god who controlled storms, kings, and destiny itself did not need to threaten. His presence was threat enough. In one fictionalized myth, a nymph once whispered to the wind, "Is refusal possible when the sky is listening?" The wind did not answer. Divine desire as law. Zeus was not merely ruler of Olympus. He was the embodiment of cosmic order. His will shaped justice, punishment, and fate. When such a being desires something, desire itself becomes law. This is the most disturbing dimension of Zeus's behavior. His longing redefined morality in real time. What would be considered violence among mortals was sanctified when enacted by Zeus. Boundaries ceased to exist because Zeus defined where boundaries ended. Desire was no longer personal, it was institutional. The illusion of romance. Ancient poets wrapped Zeus's affairs in beauty, moonlit encounters, enchanted transformations, divine splendor. These aesthetic choices were not accidental. They softened what would otherwise appear unbearable. Romance became camouflage. By aestheticizing Zeus's actions, myth disguised exploitation as destiny. The language of love replaced the language of harm. The result was a cultural anesthesia. Pain rendered poetic, violation rendered sublime. In truth, romance served power. Why Zeus needed variety. Promiscuity suggests excess appetite. But Zeus's endless pursuit of new lovers points to something deeper, restlessness rooted in dominance. No single relationship could satisfy Zeus because satisfaction was never the goal. What he sought was affirmation, repeated proof that nothing was beyond his reach. Each conquest reaffirmed supremacy. Each submission reinforced identity. Each transformation demonstrated mastery. Zeus did not collect lovers. He collected confirmations of power. Hera's silence and complicity. Hera is often portrayed as the antagonist, cruel, jealous, vindictive. Yet her role is more tragic than villainous. Hera could not challenge Zeus directly. His authority was absolute. Her retaliation therefore displaced, aimed at women who were safer targets. This dynamic reveals a structural truth. Power protects itself by redirecting blame downward. In a darker retelling, Hera once tells a victim, "If I punish him, the world ends. If I punish you, order remains." Thus, Hera's cruelty becomes part of the system that preserves Zeus. The gods who looked away. Zeus's behavior did not occur in isolation. Olympus watched and remained silent. Athena, goddess of wisdom, said nothing. Apollo, god of truth, sang elsewhere. Hermes carried messages, but never warnings. Silence was not ignorance. It was survival. To challenge Zeus was to challenge the structure of existence itself. Thus, the gods participated not through action, but through inaction. Complicity took the form of myth. Children as justification. One of the most insidious defenses of Zeus's actions lies in the offspring. Heroes, kings, demigods. Their greatness retroactively justified their conception. If the child becomes legendary, the suffering becomes acceptable. This logic mirrors real-world power structures. Harm forgiven when productivity results. Trauma erased by achievement. The mother becomes a vessel. The child becomes evidence. The god becomes absolved. The mortal cost of divine freedom. Zeus was free because others were not. His freedom to desire relied on mortal vulnerability. His immunity to consequence depended on their fragility. His legacy was built on lives interrupted, altered, erased. Promiscuity suggests indulgence. Abuse of power suggests system. Zeus's behavior was systematic. The mortal cost of divine freedom. Zeus was free because others were not. His freedom to desire relied on mortal vulnerability. His immunity to consequence depended on their fragility. His legacy was built on lives interrupted, altered, erased. Promiscuity suggests indulgence. Abuse of power suggests system. Zeus's behavior was systematic. The fiction of mutual love. Some myths insist that certain lovers truly loved Zeus. But love, without equality, is distortion. Love cannot exist where fear is present. Love cannot exist without refusal. Love cannot exist when one party defines reality. What Zeus received may have resembled affection, gratitude, awe, but it was never reciprocal love. It was adaptation. A god afraid of rejection. Paradoxically, Zeus's abuse of power may reveal insecurity rather than confidence. Why disguise himself if his authority was unquestionable? Why deceive if devotion was guaranteed? Why avoid truth if love was genuine? Because rejection was the one thing Zeus could not tolerate. Truth invites refusal. Illusion prevents it. Power that must never be tested. Zeus's greatest fear was not Hera, rebellion, or chaos. It was the moment someone would see him clearly and still say no. That moment would expose the limit of his power. Thus, Zeus ensured it never happened. Modern echoes. Zeus's story endures because it is familiar. Powerful men excused as passionate. Institutions protecting abusers. Victims blamed for consequences. Beauty masking harm. Success justifying suffering. Myth does not belong to the past. It survives because its structures persist. The final question. Was Zeus merely a god of many lovers? Or was he a ruler who normalized exploitation by cloaking it in divinity? The answer reshapes how we read myth and power itself. If Zeus represents unchecked authority, then his story is not about desire. It is about what happens when no one can say no. Closing reflection of Part 3. Zeus was not undone by excess love, but by excess permission. He lived in a world where desire faced no resistance, where truth was optional, and where consequence never climbed upward. To call this promiscuity is to misunderstand power. What Zeus practiced was not love multiplied. It was domination repeated. And as long as myth calls it romance, the thunder will never be questioned. Conclusion: when love becomes the privilege of the powerful. The stories of Zeus ultimately force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Love, when claimed by absolute power, ceases to be love at all. It becomes privilege. It becomes entitlement. It becomes something taken, not shared. Zeus did not lack affection or desire. He lacked limitation. In a world where no one could refuse him without consequence, every act of longing was transformed into an assertion of dominance. What appeared as romance in myth was, in essence, the exercise of authority disguised as intimacy. The women who crossed Zeus's path did not merely experience divine passion. They bore the weight of a system that placed power above consent and legacy above lives. Their suffering was softened by poetry, erased by heroism, and forgotten beneath the names of sons who inherited glory without the burden of their mother's pain. When love belongs only to the strong, it demands no permission. It silences resistance. It rewrites harm as destiny. And it teaches the world that desire, when powerful enough, needs no justification. Zeus endures not because he was misunderstood, but because his story reflects a recurring human failure, the tendency to excuse domination when it is wrapped in greatness. As long as power defines love, and love is denied equality, the thunder will continue to echo, not as a symbol of justice, but as a warning left unheeded. To question Zeus, then, is not to challenge myth. It is to challenge the systems that still mistake power for love.